Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Better Workdays podcast. I am your host, Andy Morrison, and this is the show where you get free, quick, and actionable advice on how to create better workdays for yourself and for the people around you. Now, this week on Better Workdays, I'm drawing some inspiration from the gentleman who I recommended to you in our last episode. His name is Malcolm Guite. And I recommended him because I found his videos online where he sits in his study and he reads Tolkien's work to you and reflects on it as if you're visiting him in his study. And I have since done a deeper dive into Malcolm Guite, and he's having quite the effect on me. I'll do a longer episode really analyzing Malcolm Guite's work and talking about some of the influence he's already having on me, even though I just learned about him a couple weeks ago. But for this episode, I kind of wanted to let Malcolm's influence shine a little bit. And here's one thing I'm taking away from Malcolm Guite. It's okay to be a bit messy. It is okay to be a bit messy. I beat myself up over my messy nature quite a bit. It's a problem. It's a problem how much I beat myself up over it. And Malcolm Guite, his study looks a lot like my bedroom or my bedside table or my office or my desk. It's a bit cluttered. There's a lot of stuff everywhere. There's a lot of books everywhere. Basically, you know, when I watch him, I can see myself in his physical surroundings. He had a video kind of inviting someone in and talking about how he had meant to clean up before they got there. And he touched a little bit on that notion of like that, you know, sense of shame we could carry over propriety and things like that.
Oh, hello. Hi, here you are. Do you know, I was going to have a little tidy up before you arrived because it's a bit embarrassingly chaotic in here because I've been busy. But actually, you know, maybe it's better. I just like this lovely little Peterson spigot. You know, it's new anyway. Why don't we have a quick tour of the sheer untidiness? It all tells a story.
So it just kind of, you know, it's like a little heartbreaking to hear someone like that express a vulnerability, or, you know, to think of the absurdity of him being a little embarrassed by his messy office when he's just, what he has to share with everybody is so immensely valuable that mess couldn't seem less or couldn't seem more insignificant in light of what he's doing, the value he's providing. So, you know, in watching the video and you kind of like extend that grace to him, and that's, I know that's a cliche that they say you need to extend it to yourself. Like if a friend came to you and said, "Oh, I'm a total mess. I'm such a slob," blah, blah, you know, you'd be like, "Whoa, take it easy on yourself." And you kind of have to do that for yourself too. You have to catch yourself thinking those thoughts. And so Malcolm kind of helped me with that. And, you know, that being said, I still cleaned my office this week and I felt good about cleaning it, but I think as it gets cluttered, which it will do, I'll now be able to remind myself, well, yeah, it's cluttered just like Malcolm's office. Like this is what it looks like when you're just sort of lost in books and the stuff that interests you, the stuff that you're passionate about, the stuff that really grabs hold of your mind and your heart and says, you got to do something with all this. When you're chasing that, you don't have time to clean as you go. You don't have time to clean as you go. At least I don't. So Malcolm Guite has helped me feel better about that. And so another way I want to show his influences is when he did the tour of his study, it got me thinking about my study, or what I consider this backdrop you could see. And Malcolm Guite was, you know, pulling books off, and he's always taking books off the shelf and sharing from them. And it reminded me that a piece of feedback I've gotten on the last few evaluations for our Level Up Leadership program. A few times people have suggested, we have a question on there, what could we do to improve the program? And a few times now people have said a formal references list or a formal list of related books to read, recommended readings would be great. I do my best in workshops. I like to do what I do on the podcast, which is if I'm sharing information, I show you the source material. I like to bring the book into the workshop and show everybody because, one, it's the insecure part of me. I guess you could look at it as I want them to know I'm actually reading this stuff. Two, though, and I think more importantly, is that I think it's so important for them to know that this stuff all exists somewhere. It's not coming from Andy Morrison's mind, not all of it, or whoever the instructor for that workshop, whether it's me, Heather, Rocky, John, Bob, whoever's teaching. As they say in academics, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And Malcolm Guite touches on this too in his stuff. He's talking about poetry and things like that. But I just watched a video with him where he was saying,
and I think the first thing I want to say to you is there is no such thing as a blank piece of paper. As soon as you use language, as soon as you speak a word, you are already involved in a conversation about poetry. Poems are themselves composed of language, which is a gift you've received and will pass on. And every word you have carries stories, carries an inheritance, tells you something. So I want to start by saying to you that your head is already full of poetry, all the poems you've read. When you begin to write, all the other poets are at your elbow, as it were. And the more you read, the better you'll write. But not only old poems, but words themselves.
Every word already exists. Everything that you could write has been written elsewhere. You're just reformatting it, representing it, putting your spin on it, presenting it from your perspective. But it has all been said and written before. So when you look at the blank page, you're not really looking at a blank page. When you start writing on it, you're not creating words. You are playing in the same sandbox as everyone that came before you. And the words you're going to use have certain meanings and connotations thanks to their prior use by everyone who came before you, by everyone who conquered a blank page of their own. And so similarly, I very much believe with what we do, leadership development, I think it's important to illustrate that to everybody that, yeah, this is, it's we're in the sandbox. We're using these tools and these concepts, and none of it's new. None of it's new. A lot of people in this field want you to think what they have to offer is new. What they have is a new way of thinking, a new way of presenting the things that already exist, a new interpretation of what's come before. But kind of the point is there is nothing new. And that can take the pressure off of you when you're faced with the blank page, or when you're faced with a blank workshop outline and you've got to decide, all right, I've got 3 hours with these folks. How can I most effectively use those 3 hours to help them learn in a way that is going to have an immediate and lasting effect on their life? That's a tall task for 3 hours. And so when you're faced with that, similar to what Malcolm said, I find it reassuring to remind myself, oh yeah, like I'm participating in a school of thought here. There's decades and decades of work and research that came prior to me. I'm an insignificant small part of this school of thought, and I'm simply taking some of it and presenting it to people. And that helps me so much. And so I think it's important for everybody in the workshops to know this stuff is out there for them. They're getting it right now filtered through Real Custom Training and our curriculum and our program, but they could go get this book themselves, read it like I read it, and draw their own conclusions. And some of them might choose to do that. So like I said, I like to show them the book and remind them, hey, it's just a book. I very distinctly remember Dr. Nikolai at Eastern Connecticut State University in my grad program, who has sadly passed away, the late Dr. Nikolai. But I remember at the time in my master's program, I was sitting there and I was thinking, at the time I was working in corporate training, but administratively, I wasn't running workshops. I wasn't teaching. But the thought had entered my mind of, I think I would like to teach and I think I could be very good at it. But the egotistical part of me felt like, well, you better be a genius. That fixed mindset that we talk so much about. My fixed mindset about myself was, you should only be teaching if you're somehow like a wonderkind. If you just you get it all. And I realized I would watch professors like Dr. Nikolai gave a presentation, and I believe the specific one when this happened was about running a good meeting. And I remember listening to her, and everything she was saying was so helpful. And I remember thinking, like, I couldn't do that. Like I wouldn't, I don't know, have I run enough meetings to give people advice on how to run meetings? And then I'll never forget, this is the point here, that at the end, she shared the list, and it was maybe 3 or 4 Harvard Business Review type articles on how to run effective meetings that she had pulled all this wonderful information from and presented to us in a way that we could take back to work the next day and start putting to use. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, Andy, you fool. Like, of course she had sources. Where did I think this was all coming from? Of course she had sources. She read it. She distilled it. She presented it to us in the way that she thought would be most helpful to us as individuals and as people. If she can do that, I can do that. And that's essentially what we do at Real Custom Trading. That's what any teacher ever is doing. As Malcolm Guite said, you're never faced with a blank page. It's all been written before. It's all been written before. That blank page is not actually a blank page. Now, here's the real point of this episode, all right? How do you like that? 11 minutes in. This is kind of an ode to Malcolm Guite. But here's the real tangible part for this episode. I do need to act on that recommendation, that request from my customers to give them a list of the books that we use. So this episode, I don't have the list yet, but we're going to improvisationally start that project with you. And what you're going to get in this episode is a list of books. I call them the books we build with. The books we build with. These are the books that our core self-management skills program was largely based on and derived from. And I'm going to pull them live from this new bookcase. Now, you may have noticed this new bookcase. I don't know if I've highlighted it yet on Better Work Days. Look at this beautiful bookcase. And watch this. Watch now. Does it spin? Of course it spins. Look at that. Now I'm going to drag it over, okay? We're going to test the sturdiness of it. Oh, boy. I think I almost just broke it. All right, here we go. Wow. Oh, I forgot. Okay. Oh, no. This is not good. Okay. Oh, my God. I forgot. Look at this. Look at this friggin' glass. That's a solid glass block. I forgot that I put it on top of that. That just went flying off of there. Oh, boy. All right. Core self-management skills. Here are the books that we built with. And let me first show you. I'm going to put up on the screen for you. Here's our core self-management skills flyer. 6 workshops on leading yourself so you can lead others. 6 topics. We'll start with the first one. I'm rattled from almost knocking this over. That was developing your growth mindset. All right. Developing your growth mindset. Key topic. 2 books. 2 books that I largely used for that. And here they are. First and foremost, Mindset, This New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck, PhD. This is where it all comes from. This is the pioneering book on growth mindset, fixed versus growth mindset. So you've got to start here. Now, as you can see, I've got all these stickies. And at some point, I even had vertical ones and side ones. There was a system at some point. Let's try this. All right. I'm going to open to a random sticky. Okay. I open to, can you see this? Here's the heading. Brutal bosses. Brutal bosses. Let me see what a takeaway here is for you. Yes. Okay. So this is talking about how if bosses have a fixed mindset, if you have a fixed mindset, let's say I have a fixed mindset of myself that I'm a genius. You know, like I said, I sometimes feel pressured to be a wonderkind. Although I'm almost 40, so I don't think I would even qualify for wonderkind anymore. In fact, shout out to Mark Klebanoff out there in La La Land in California. I worked for Mark when I was 20. I worked for him. He was producing independent movies. Great guy. And in fact, I see on LinkedIn now he's teaching too. He's teaching about, oh my goodness. Oh, the block hit my phone, everybody. The block landed on my phone. I almost wish it. Oh no, my phone is. Oh no. Oh boy. Not good. Not good. Not good. Not good. Not good. Anyway, Mark Lebanoff used to say, I remember he got interviewed once about producing movies, and they said, "You're 27. You know, isn't that young to be doing this?" And he said, "Well, let me tell you something." He said, "I'm old enough to know what I'm doing, but young enough that it's pretty damn impressive that I know what I'm doing." And I remember thinking then, so I would have been like 20. I remember thinking then, when does that stop? What's the cutoff for that? And I think I'm getting there. I think 40 is the, I don't think it's. Yeah, I'm not young anymore. Actually, I was talking to someone the other day. Oh, my phone's flashing. Hey, everybody. I'm jumping back in. It's Andy. It's actually, I'm recording right now, the day after the cell phone incident and the glass block incident. I actually, after all that happened, so the scene the last thing you just heard was me just giving up. I lost my train of thought in the middle of something. I was so rattled from smashing the phone that I said, okay, this episode's done. And then I came back on and did what I'm doing now, kind of a little, hey, let me jump in and explain why the episode ended and blah, blah, blah. As I was recording that yesterday, in the middle of it, my computer fell off the desk because, unbeknownst to me, when the bookshelf keeled a little bit and the glass block hit everything, it pushed a tripod that has the camera back, and that hit the computer back, and apparently the computer was teetering on the edge of the desk. So when you're trying to record a video to explain why you had to stop the prior video because your phone got smashed because you knocked over part of a bookcase, when you're doing that and your computer falls off the desk, that's a sign to pack it up, and as Rocky Blunt famously says, take the rest of the day off. And that's what I did. Plus it was late in the day, so I only took like a half hour off. But so here I am the next day. Wow. I watched the episode back. I really liked the Malcolm Guite stuff. So here's a growth mindset lesson for you. What I did was I took the opportunity when I rewatched everything that I recorded. I realized there were times where I was saying, I was paraphrasing stuff from Malcolm Guite videos. And so what I did, since I was sitting at home watching on the computer, I took a little bit of time and I went in and I cut out some of my summaries of what Malcolm Guite had to say. And instead I cut in actual audio clips from Malcolm Guite's videos. So rather than getting me paraphrasing him, you get to hear Malcolm himself. And I actually really liked it looking back. Not that it's anything that fancy, but I would like to do more of that, because one of the things I like about Malcolm Guite, and I touched on it in the episode, I love the idea that as you're studying, whether it's leadership development, management development, poetry, science, the arts, whatever school of thought, whatever field of interest has really captivated you, when you're diving into that and you're reading the works and you're even contributing your own small pieces of work, I love the way Malcolm Guite makes it seem like you're having a conversation. And I like cutting his audio into the episodes because I feel like it does make it a kind of echoes that idea that it's a conversation and a back and forth. So I like the idea of getting more clips from different inspirational people into the podcast. But anyway, so we're going to release the episode as is. Obviously, we didn't get through all the books. We'll do that in a future episode because, as I said, I would like to do that for the customers, get that official list of books together, and we'll do a special episode about it. But I'll also take the opportunity to do a little more planning in that regard and maybe have some key takeaways from each book identified before we pull it off the shelf. So I'll look forward to doing that soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Better Workdays podcast. Yeah, it's funny. It is a little embarrassing, but I know it's funny.